Jeannie Mai has a line that has been ricocheting across the internet since she said it quietly into a podcast microphone with no glam team and no stage. She said that you can build a house with someone, raise a child, share a dream, but if they see you as temporary, you were never home to them.
I have to tell you that getting to know Jay, you guys know him as Jeezy, he's Jay to me. Getting to know him has been one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Oh. I swear, any woman who has been divorced in that year, you have red flags if it's not going.
She did not say Jeezy's name. She did not need to. Everyone listening already knew exactly who she was talking about and exactly what she was describing. And the specific quality of that line, the architectural metaphor, the precision of the word temporary, told you that Jeannie had been sitting with this understanding for long enough to find the exact language for it. This is what using someone looks like when it is done well.
From a big family,
Yeah.
and Jeezy's family is big, and it's like, it's just everybody. So I'm thinking you might want to add a sibling to the family. Are you looking at that? This is like the time.
So we are open to it, yes.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does not announce itself. It wears the costume of healing and growth and partnership. It produces an 8-hour first date and a salsa dancing story and a baby and a book promotion and a Mother's Day tribute.
We're grown, we're in our 40s. And what I think is that God somehow managed our timing so that we spent time after our long-term relationships. We both came from 10-year relationships. And we really worked on ourselves to really understand what healthy love is like.
And then one morning, the paperwork arrives, and the person who built their life around believing in what was being offered finds out that the offering was always conditional on something they never agreed to provide. The real reason Jeezy filed for divorce is not the reason he has been performing in his interviews.
You know, it was just always instances where I just knew that this wasn't gonna work out for me, right? So I had to figure out how to change without losing everything.
The real reason is what Jeannie's statement names, that he never intended for her to be permanent. He intended for her to be proof. Jeannie Mai's history before Jeezy is the context that makes what he allegedly did so specifically calculated. She was not a woman who gave her trust or her boundaries easily. After her first marriage collapsed in the specific way that leaves a person reconstructing their entire understanding of what they are willing to risk.
So I walk in, I sit down, and 4 hours later, we shut down the sushi restaurant. We had the most amazing deep talk about our greatest lessons in life, our greatest mistakes. It was super vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then after that, he looks at me and he's like, yo, you wanna I don't wanna go home. Do you wanna go salsa dancing with me? Wait, yeah.
Her ex-husband's betrayal was complete enough that she made a series of promises to herself about what she would never do again. She would not remarry, she would not have children, she would not hand anyone the specific access to her stability that those choices require. She said these things publicly and consistently. They were not private positions she kept to herself. They were part of her public identity, part of how she talked about herself and her future on national television, part of the story she had built about who she had become after being broken and rebuilt. And then, Jeezy walked in. He was everything the moment required. Calm in a way that read as earned rather than performed. Reflective in a way that the language of healing and purpose and God's timing makes possible for men who understand how to speak that language. He was the reformed version of himself. The chapter after the street era and the legal complications and the years of music that had celebrated a life he was now publicly claiming to have transcended. He gave her the 8-hour date. He gave her the salsa dancing. He gave her the sushi restaurant shutting down around them because neither of them wanted to leave. She told audiences that God managed their timing perfectly, that they spent time learning what healthy love was, that getting to know him had been one of the most beautiful experiences of her life. She changed her mind about marriage. She changed her mind about children. She went through IVF. She gave him Monaco. And while she was doing all of that, while she was systematically dismantling every wall she had built after the first marriage and handing him the access she had sworn she would not give anyone, he was apparently building something else. The timeline is where this story stops being a breakup and becomes something darker. The divorce paperwork was notarized months before it was filed. Not drafted, notarized. Officially signed and prepared for submission. While Jeannie was in Vietnam showing Jeezy her roots, describing the trip as deeply spiritual, and posting family content that her audience received as evidence of a thriving marriage, the legal instrument that would end that marriage was already completed and sitting with his attorney. He posted a Mother's Day tribute calling her the glue that holds everything together after the papers were prepared. He showed up to events as her husband. He accepted the congratulations for his New York Times bestseller while she called him her inspiration in public posts. Every one of those moments, the tribute, the appearances, the book promotion, was performed with the specific knowledge that it was temporary, that she did not know it was temporary. that she was loving him out loud with full belief in what they had while he had already decided what they had was over. That is not a man who fell out of love. That is a man who managed a transition on a timeline that served his interests without consideration for what it would do to the person being transitioned away from. The book is the piece that keeps standing out in this story. Jeezy's public evolution, the transformation from trap star to motivational author, from street figure to philosopher, from rapper to the kind of man who talks about purpose and legacy and doing the internal work, required something to make it legible to an audience that had known him as something else. It required evidence, proof, a witness to the transformation who had enough credibility of their own that their endorsement carried weight. Jeannie Mai had that credibility. She was a celebrated television personality who had been publicly honest about her own healing journey. She had told millions of people about her first marriage's collapse and her rebuilding. She had talked about learning what healthy love looked like. And she had, in front of all of those people, said that Jeezy was it, that he was the thing she had been working toward, that he made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before. That endorsement was worth something specific in the market of public credibility. It was the certification that Jeezy's reformed man narrative needed to be taken seriously. A woman of Jeannie's profile, with her documented history of requiring genuine healing before trusting again, choosing him and saying so publicly, that was the stamp that made the brand. Her statement that his only mistake was believing in someone who used her healing as branding is the most precise thing that has been said about this situation, because it names the specific mechanism of what happened. It was not that he did not love her. It was that her love and her healing were resources he extracted to build something for himself, the wife, the child, the image of the family man, the credibility of the reformed figure. All of it was assembled using materials she provided because she believed she was building something shared. When the material had been sufficiently assembled, when the book was written, the brand was established, the transformation narrative had been publicly and credibly certified, the arrangement apparently became less necessary, and Jeezy's response to the dissolution of the marriage has confirmed the shape of what it was. He did not grieve publicly in the way men who have lost something they valued tend to grieve. He performed equanimity. He posted about focusing on who he was becoming and letting go of who was not coming with him, framing Jeannie as something he had released in service of his ongoing evolution, rather than something he had lost or damaged or been responsible for ending the way he ended it. He gave interviews about change and growth and the difficulty of becoming better without acknowledging that the person most affected by his becoming had not been informed or consulted. The Mario Lopez angle surfaced from Jeezy's camp in the specific way that damaging information surfaces when someone needs the narrative redirected. Reports of flirty texts, suggestions of closeness that crossed lines, the implication that Jeannie was the problem, that Jeezy's decision to file was a response to something she had done rather than a plan he had been executing for months before any of those alleged texts existed. Jeannie called it character assassination. Her representative said directly that her only mistake was trusting someone who used her healing as branding. The precision of that response, the specific identification of what was being done to her reputation and why, reflects someone who had already understood the shape of the manipulation before it arrived in its current form. Because this is the same playbook that was used throughout the marriage. Create an image of something genuine. Let the other person invest in it fully and publicly. Then, when the arrangement has served its purpose, manage the exit in a way that redirects the narrative away from your own choices and toward the other person's alleged failures. The Mario Lopez story is not a revelation. It is a strategy. It is the latest version of the same management of appearance that Jeezy was apparently practicing from the moment the paperwork was notarized. Jeannie has not matched his performance of calm. She has been emotional and pointed and has let the pain be visible in ways that his team has used to paint her as unstable and his equanimity as evidence of higher ground. But the calm person in a situation where one party created an extensive deception and the other party is discovering it is not the more honest party. The calm is not evidence of rightness. The calm is evidence of preparation. He had months to prepare for this moment. She had none. What Jeannie's public processing of this has given the culture is something beyond the specific story of her marriage. It has given language to an experience that does not have clean cultural scripts attached to it. The experience of being used not in the crass transactional sense, but in the deeper sense of having your genuineness mined for someone else's project. She built his credibility with her own. She certified his transformation by transforming in response to it. And the lines she has been posting about being seen as temporary, about people studying you to learn how to hurt you, about silence being the loudest form of strength. Those lines have traveled because they describe something that a significant number of people recognize from their own lives. The divorce is not over. The custody arrangement around Monaco is contested. The financial settlement is unresolved. The Mario Lopez narrative is still circulating. Jeezy is still posting about growth, and Jeannie is still rebuilding, and the courts are still deciding. But the essential truth of the situation, The thing Jeannie's statement placed on the permanent record of this story is already visible. He used her healing as branding. She built a house with someone who always saw her as temporary. And the moment she understood that, she stopped defending him and started protecting herself. The line she said, "Love without respect is not love," is the verdict of a woman who has examined what happened without the distortion of hoping it meant something different. It is the accounting of someone who gave more than she received and has stopped pretending that the exchange was fair. Jeezy taught her how to love again, which she has acknowledged. What she taught him is something he has not yet shown signs of understanding. That the people who give you their genuineness are not resources to be managed and deployed and eventually transitioned away from. That using someone's healing as proof of your own transformation is not healing. That the image of a reformed man built on borrowed credibility is not character. It is craft, and craft, however well executed, tends to reveal itself eventually, often in a statement delivered to a podcast microphone with no glam team and no stage by the woman who was closest to it longest. The public has been forced to hold two competing versions of this story simultaneously since the divorce became public, and the tension between those versions is what keeps the conversation alive. Version 1 is Jeezy's, the man who did the internal work, who tried couples therapy, who eventually had to make a painful decision for his own well-being because the relationship had stopped serving his growth. In this version, he is the evolved one, the bigger person, the philosopher who understands that sometimes love has to be released. His Instagram captions and his interview segments have been building this version brick by brick since the filing became public. Version 2 is Jeannie's, and it is not the opposite of the first version so much as the floor beneath it. It does not say he never changed or never grew. It says that the growth was built on her, that the Reformation narrative required her specific form of credibility to be legible to an audience, that the family man image required her family, that the healed version of himself required her healing to certify it, and that once those things were sufficiently established, the arrangement became expendable in ways she had not been told about. These two versions cannot both be fully true. Either Jeezy genuinely believed he was building something with Jeannie and came to a painful realization that it was not sustainable, or he was managing an arrangement from the beginning, using her resources in service of a project she did not fully understand she was part of. The paperwork timeline makes the second version significantly harder to dismiss than it would otherwise be. Men who come to painful realizations about their marriages do not typically have the paperwork notarized months before their wives know anything is wrong. Men who are managing a transition they have already decided on do. The friends and insiders close to Jeannie who have described her reaction in the days and weeks after the filing have been remarkably consistent in the specific language they use. "She made me break my own rules" is the line that keeps appearing. Not that she was heartbroken, though she apparently was. Not that she was angry, though she apparently was that too. The specific wound she keeps returning to is the violation of the promises she made to herself. Because those promises were not incidental. They were the architecture of her self-protection after the first marriage. They were the structure she built to ensure she would not be in exactly the position she found herself in. He saw that architecture. He saw the walls and the specific things that had to happen for those walls to come down. And he apparently worked to produce those things. The 8-hour date was not an accident. The salsa dancing was not random. The specific vocabulary of healing and purpose and God's timing that he deployed in those early conversations was precisely the vocabulary that would land for a woman who had been doing her own work in that language for years. Whether that deployment was conscious or instinctive is impossible to know from the outside. What it produced is documented. She changed her mind about marriage. She changed her mind about children. She went through IVF. She went to Vietnam to show him her roots. She promoted his book. She called him her inspiration. She told millions of people that he was the reason she believed in love again. And he had the paperwork sitting with his attorney. The Vietnam trip is the detail that people keep returning to as the cruelest specific of the timeline, because it was not a routine couple's trip. It was something more intimate than that. Jeannie bringing Jeezy into a part of her identity and her family history that required trust to share. She was not just traveling with him. She was introducing him to something essential about who she was and where she came from. She was saying, "This is my roots, and I am bringing you here because you are worth that." And the paperwork was already done. There is no reading of that specific juxtaposition that is charitable to Jeezy. Even the most generous interpretation, that he had filed but was still genuinely uncertain, still hoping something would change, still open to a different outcome, does not survive the notarization date. You do not notarize divorce paperwork as a maybe. You notarize it when you have made a decision and are preparing to act on it. The Vietnam trip was not a man reconsidering. It was a man who had already decided, letting the last chapter play out because managing the narrative of the exit required a certain amount of continued performance. Jeannie said that if someone sees you as temporary, you were never home to them. That line contains the entire story. Because home implies permanence. Home implies that the person you are with understands that the place you occupy in their life is not a transitional arrangement, but a destination. And everything she built inside that marriage, the walls she dismantled, the positions she reversed, the trust she extended, was built on the belief that she was home to him, that she was not a chapter in a story he was writing about himself, but a co-author of something they were building together. She was the chapter. And when the chapter was complete, he turned the page. The courts are the next arena where this plays out. The custody arrangement around Monaco, the financial settlement, the ongoing legal proceedings, all of it is still unresolved. And Jeannie has made clear through the specific things she has chosen to say publicly that she is not approaching any of it from a position of wanting it to be quiet and clean. She said, "Tell it all." She said she was not scared of his version of the truth. Those are not the words of someone who has decided that dignity requires silence. Those are the words of someone who has decided that dignity requires the full story being told. What Jeezy's team has been doing in response, the Mario Lopez narrative, the cryptic captions about truth not needing noise, the interviews where he talks about growth without accountability, is the same management of appearance that the timeline reveals was happening throughout the marriage. He is very good at this. The calm composure, the spiritual vocabulary, the performance of a man who is above the fray and has made peace with difficult things. It is convincing if you do not have access to the floor beneath it. Jeannie has the floor. She lived in it, and she has been telling the world what she found there, one carefully chosen statement at a time, with the specific patience of someone who understands that the truth she is carrying does not need to be rushed. It just needs to be said. And she is saying it. In podcast interviews with no staging, in Instagram captions that do not tag him but do not need to, in the specific decision to stop defending him and start protecting herself, which happened publicly enough that anyone watching could mark the transition. The woman who once called him her inspiration is now the woman saying that love without respect is not love. The distance between those two statements is the full story of what happened inside that marriage. Jeezy taught her what it felt like to believe in love again after being broken. That is the thing she has acknowledged, and the thing she apparently still holds is true. What she learned in addition to that, what the timeline and the paperwork and the Vietnam trip and the Mother's Day tribute all teach her, is the more expensive lesson, that the people who give you the experience of feeling loved are not always building what you think they are building. That sometimes the most convincing love story is the one being used to tell a different story entirely. She is building something else now. Whatever the next chapter is, it is being built on the understanding she earned the hard way. And Jeezy is still promoting the growth narrative while the woman who certified it is telling anyone who will listen exactly what that certification cost her. So here is what this story is. Jeezy filed for divorce after notarizing the paperwork months in advance, while Jeannie was still publicly celebrating their marriage and privately believing in it. His camp then floated the Mario Lopez narrative to redirect the story away from the timeline. Jeannie called it what it was, character assassination from someone who used her healing as branding. And the statement she made about being seen as temporary is the most precise description of what she is alleging happened between them that has yet been offered in public. Do you believe Jeezy's evolution was genuine and the marriage simply failed? Or do you think Jeannie's account of being used to certify a reformation narrative describes what actually happened? And does the timeline, the months between notarization and filing, the Mother's Day tribute in between, change how you read his public positioning as the evolved man moving forward? Drop everything in the comments. Both sides of this have been active and neither one is clean. Hit that like and subscribe, because this divorce still has court dates ahead, and Jeannie has made clear she is done staying quiet about any of it.